In October 2010, the CEO of Hermes was on a bike ride in the French countryside when his phone rang. It was Bernard Arnault, the richest man in France, calling to say he already owned 14% of the company and he wanted more. This is the story of how LVMH tried to secretly swallow one of the most iconic luxury brands in history and how one family fought back. Hermes has been family owned for nearly 200 years. 6 generations, the bags are made by hand, there are wait lists years long. Bernard Arnault built LVMH into a luxury empire by acquiring brands. Louis Vuitton, Dior, Givenchy, Bulgari. He's so aggressive about it that the industry gave him a nickname, the Wolf in Cashmere. Hermes was the one that got away, until, seemingly, it wasn't. So, how do you buy a company in secret? Here's where it gets interesting. LVMH didn't just go out and buy Hermes shares on the open market. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they used something called equity swaps. Let me explain in a very simplistic way. An equity swap is a financial contract between two parties, usually a big company and a bank. Here's how it works. LVMH goes to a bank and says, I want exposure to Hermes stock, but I don't want to officially own it yet. The bank goes and buys the Hermes shares on the open market. LVMH and the bank enter into a swap agreement. LVMH gets the financial returns of those shares. If the price goes up, LVMH profits, but the bank is the one listed as the legal owner. At any point, LVMH can choose to settle the swap, meaning the bank hands over the actual shares in exchange for cash. So on paper, multiple different banks owned small amounts of Hermes stock. Nothing suspicious. No single entity crossing the disclosure thresholds that would trigger a regulatory filing. In reality, LVMH had quietly lined up control over a massive chunk of the company, and nobody knew. By the time Arnault made that phone call, LVMH had already converted those swaps into real shares and held 17% of Hermes. Within weeks, it crept up to 23%. The Hermes family was furious. Patrick Thomas, the CEO, called it revolting. Later, at a press conference in front of analysts and journalists, he compared it to something so egregious I won't mention it here. The family had 829 million euros in cash and was ready to fight. Within weeks, about 50 Hermes family members gathered. Their move? Create a holding company that locked up 54.3% of their shares with one key rule. If any family member wanted to sell, they had to offer shares to the family first. You couldn't defect. Then they went after LVMH